Hey guys, Fear 880 and welcome to part 5 of the DeLorean. Where did it go? Of the DeLorean series. There was a DeLorean there. Alright, so on all seriousness, today is November the 28th. In a short little while, I'm going to rewind the tape back to October 3rd. Why? And why is there no DeLorean in the garage? Well, let's just say 2020 has been one heck of a year. No, I didn't wreck it. No, it didn't burn down. Do y'all like this right here? 45 pounds later of weight loss, and it was time to do something to the DeLorean that was much needed. Now, many of y'all had commented on part 1 and part 2, and I think one of the number one comments was, oh my gosh, you need to replace the fuel lines or they're going to go. I can't tell you how many friends and family and people had sent me the meme of this particular DeLorean burnt up in the back. If you do some research, you'll find out this is, according to the article, allegedly an insurance scam. But nevertheless, what was my response to people? Well, I told y'all, well, the car had went through a major restoration. $55,000 later, don't worry guys, the fuel lines have been taken care of. Or had they? Well, let's just say after a couple of for sale listings and so forth, I had looked things over, and it was odd because some of the for sale listings of other people's DeLoreans with original fuel lines, theirs looked identical to mine. So after a lot of research looking through my invoices and everything, guess what? The one thing that wasn't replaced during the restoration was the fuel lines. Back in 2011, 2012, when the restoration was completed, DeLorean Motor Company did not have replacement fuel lines. In fact, if many of y'all have mentioned in some of the comments before, that is parts available for a DeLorean. They are now. There are so many reproduction parts available. There are so many parts that are remanufactured. And there's a ton of new old stock at DeLorean headquarters in Texas and throughout the country and over in Europe as well. The fuel lines, on the other hand, took several years for people to come out with replacements and so forth, and now they're available. Back then they weren't. So it was time to replace the fuel lines, but if y'all remember in part 1, the front driver's side caliper had seized up before I had bought it, which is probably why it was never sold. There was some frame issues as far as surface rust and some issues that I didn't like. The rotors were kind of iffy. There was some stuff that needed to be addressed, but I wanted to drive it while the weather was warm. It was time to do some major maintenance. Now, the thing about it is, blindfold me, I can rebuild a carburetor. I can do electrical work on the cars and stuff. I can do a lot of stuff, but I know when it's time to call it quits and have a professional take over. You gonna get in? So there she goes to get the fuel lines replaced. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Darren and AJ, they live in Kernersville, North Carolina, Winston-Salem area, but they are DeLorean enthusiasts. They have their own DeLoreans, but they also restore DeLoreans and do a lot of DeLorean work for a lot of DeLorean owners. They know how to do the fuel system correctly with the correct parts, but at the same time, AJ went completely around the car and did a thorough inspection of my DeLorean and found some other issues that needed to be repaired. It was a little bit costly, but it is going to be amazing. It is finished. It should be pulling around the corner soon. So we're going to go ahead and get to the next clip of this video. Thanks again and stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, this is AJ.
Hi, folks.
Well, you know you did a good job if it made it 3 hours.
On half a tank of gas.
Wow. Wow. Is it already unlatched? the... Wow, look at this. AC's running.
You can coil this up like factory.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Wow. Let me show y'all some things real quick here. I had AJ save some of the parts that he had switched out. Now, obviously this is the original cooling fan assembly. You got your motors, the original fan, or not the original fan blades. I think those were replaced in 2012. I think they're the original motors, and you had the fan shroud. Now, all good, but these are from 1981. This is 1981 technology, and these fan motors pull a ton of amperage just per each motor, and then you combine them both, and you've got a ton of amperage drawn every time the cooling fans come on. And I mean, you know, back in 81, this worked, but it's very, very insufficient compared to modern technology now with what was swapped out with the DPI cooling fan assembly. Here's some of the other old parts here. Here is the driver's side caliper in part 1 that we had to unseize, and this is the driver's side rotor, and this is where the brake pad had basically welded itself when the car had sat for so long. And actually the same thing happened to the passenger rotor as well. That's crazy. Some of the old brake pads. Here is the master cylinder that was changed out. Apparently, the master cylinder was leaking from here, and possibly one of the other seals as well. Here you got some of the old brake lines. What else we have? I think that's about it. Yep, that's it. So the real question now is, how does it run with a true cold start with the new fuel lines tuned up? Go ahead. Remember it would low when you first started at a cold start? Doesn't do that now. Let's go for a test drive. Good.
Just turn a little bit more.
I don't have any more.
You're fine.
Yeah. Am I clear?
Yeah.
So a alignment was done, so now the steering wheel actually centers when going straight. That does great now. So in the next clip, we're going to bring this out on the main road where we can get up the speed out of the neighborhood and check everything out. One of the things you may or may not notice on the video is no more heat shield wrap. So one of the first things you may or may not notice is Darren regrained all of the stainless completely around. And while you're looking at the stainless, maybe you'll notice the brand new tires that AJ had put on. The stainless looks absolutely incredible. Come to find out, who knew I had the stainless steel exhaust? Darren found that out when he was regraining the body. New fuel lines, DPI fuel lines, new water pump. And as you'll see in these pictures, the reason why there's a new water pump is when AJ took all this off, of course, in the Valley of Death on a DeLorean engine, you will not notice if you have any coolant leaks because of the back plate or the bypass, all this stuff right here. If you have any leaks, it will leak down into the Valley of Death, which is what happened on mine. Had no clue that that had happened. And I kind of figured that we were going to run into some surprises when AJ took the fuel distribution system off and the intake and everything. We now have the cold air intake upgrade, removing the old original stovepipe, new billets, flanges, new hoses. If you can notice in the picture again with the intake removed, it appears that the driver's side intake area was leaking, had vacuum leaks on it, because of this stuff didn't look correct, and that's why we believe the engine had that loop issue when it first started. Of course, I'd already put a new air conditioning belt on and a new alternator belt, but all that's been readjusted. The new water pump, the valve cover seals were actually, the valve covers were a little bit loose, so that's been tightened up. New coolant, throttle body spacer, new hardware as well, new banjo nuts and washers and everything. All new fuel lines, even going down to the new fuel filter and everything. And we had to recharge the system. I'll show you up front why. He also put an LED light in on the engine bay light. And I think that's pretty much it. He also did the timing. The plugs were okay. The wires look just perfectly fine. No, he might have changed the plugs. But we also have a brand new oil change and a oil filter that was done as well. So AJ really went to town here down in the engine bay. So from the back, you can see it's got new brake lines. You can't tell from the rotor from this direction, but I'll show you a picture that he had sent me as well. And hopefully y'all can see the new DPI cooling fans that have now replaced the original fans from 1981. These things are so much more efficient. Here's another angle of the DPI cooling fan modification. Also, that top small radiator hose was replaced. We also had this AC line decided to just burst while it was in his shop. So the system has been completely flushed, recharged, and it is incredible how much better the AC system works now.